Welcome to Circle Podcast, brought to you by Circle Sanctuary, one of the oldest nature spirituality churches in the United States, connecting people of nature-centered paths around the world. Join us throughout the week for a variety of shows discussing various topics, celebrating the divine in all of its forms through nature worship, rituals, education, and building bridges of community. Welcome to Urban Unwitches, a podcast to educate, inform, and expand the pagan community. Please join our Discord channel, Urban Unwitches Podcast. Follow us on TikTok at Urban Unwitches, and listen to all our past podcasts on your favorite podcasting platform. You can also join us on YouTube at Urban Unwitches. Now, back to the show. Well, let's do a check-in, and
Okay.
since it's Yule time, why don't we
Ooh.
say what we want for Yule?
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And
I've
be
been wanting to know
real.
what's up. Oh. Badia, this is family rated. Our podcast is
Okay,
rated E for
yes,
everyone. Um,
it is rated E for everyone.
but no, I am glad we're doing a check-in because I want to know what's up with Yule. Get it? What's up with Yule?
Yule.
That's what today is going to be like. I just wanted to put you on notice. What do I want? I want my holidays to go off without a hitch. That's the only thing I want because I've gotten everything else that I want. Like Chris and I are not really doing Yule gifts this year
Right.
because we have received so many blessings from the universe. I am so incredibly grateful. I recognize that right now is a time of great plenty and goodness in my life. It may be surrounded, this may be an oasis of joy in a sea of WTFery, but this is my happy little island, and I don't get a happy island very often. I'm usually one of those people that's nipples deep in drama because I'm helping other folks or I'm advocating or I'm doing something. This is just a joyful time for me, and I am just thrilled. I'm tickled pink because of it. I have an incredibly generous husband who has gifted me all the nerd things that I could possibly want. I'm in a beautiful new home. My mom and my niece are day by day doing better. I haven't talked to anybody in Florida in like weeks, so that also is a source of joy. Yeah, it's like raise that roof. I don't know what that means or why I did that. Impulse control is at an all-time low today. And then recently, for people who listen to our podcast in sequential order, I had some bad news from work fairly recently, but I now realize it wasn't so much bad news. I'm glad that it
Mm.
happened because I'm at a point now where I'm like, I don't think I want that job. Like I have nothing against my employer. I have nothing against the work that I do because I've had some really great interactions. I've really helped some people who were in a tough spot and needed it, which is what feeds me as a person. But I got comfortable somewhere and I don't care about my job, but I care about the people in it. And I take
Right.
care of my people and I can
Right.
sometimes get pulled into the gravity of that trap. And that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that happened. So I'm going to finish out the last tiny little bit of my current degree and then decide what I want to do for my next one. I've gone back to part time, which will officially start in January. So I'm going to have a lot more free time to do all the fun things that I want to do and all the crafty, wonderful things that I get up to. So yeah.
Yay.
So yeah, I just want my
Awesome.
in-laws to come in and everything to work out because I love them and they're wonderful and I won the in-law lottery, but I always get nervous when they get here because at any point, like my real personality could come out and then they wouldn't love me anymore. So
That's not true, but okay.
yeah. Oh, and we're going to Greece.
Oh, how did that come
Yeah.
about?
So my mother-in-law is turning the beautiful age of 60 and she wears it better than anybody I know because she is a lovely, lovely lady. And she wanted to go on like a cruise for her 60th and they found this really great deal on a Grecian cruise. Now, most of my like historical mythological research, like a lot of the groups I've been associated with have their foundation in like the Greek gods. And so I have extensively researched this area. And next August, we were just chatting and they invited us to go. And we're like, you know what? We're in a place where we can just say yes. We can go if we want to. And so I'm going to get to fly into London and stay overnight there and then fly into Greece. And We're going to do like, I think 2 days in Athens, Crete, Mykonos, and then 2 days in Istanbul. And I am beyond excited because I want to stand in Athens. I want to see where the Delian League was born. I want to see all that history because I'm going to fangirl the entire time. I'm probably going to cry like a very, very tired toddler multiple times on this trip because I know the history that lives in this place, and I know I'm going to be overwhelmed. You should see me at the fort in St. Augustine. It's really embarrassing for anybody who goes with me. Yeah, and that's only
I
500
got
years
I
of
got an
history.
I got a text from him that said, "I'm going to Greece. I'm crying like a baby."
I was at a Patty's Egg Nest. That's a little restaurant here. Yeah, Chris. When I realized Chris wasn't joking, we're going to Greece. I looked at him and then I started getting misty, and I did that whole like that southern thing when you put your hand over your mouth because you know
Yes.
you're about to ugly cry in
Yeah.
public and you can't do that because then you have to go home and seppuku like that. Yeah, it's a thing.
Awesome.
And how about you? What's up in the world of Dia?
I am I'm finally out of my I got bad news, medical bad news, and then now I'm kind of coming out of that kind of funk.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm actually doing things that I've been ignoring, and working on crochet, which is what I always do, and looking toward LARP.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting a LARP cloak for Yule, and it's waterproof, which
Mm-hmm.
is why I want it. It's waterproofed, and then it's also got warmth in it, and so it's the whole thing. And since we play in January, February, March,
Mm-hmm.
something like that is really important, um, for me. So I'm getting that, and I suspect I'm getting a shirt that says, "Yes, all this yarn is mine. Do not question me, mortal," with a dragon
Yes.
on top of the yarn pile.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Uh,
Oh, there is a thing I saw for you, and I will
what?
try to send you the link for it. So it is a Yule tree skirt that is quilted that has like it looks kind of like a little cave, and it's got a little quilted dragon in it. And some of them have books, and then some of them have piles of yarn. And it is an actual tree skirt. And it is absolutely gorgeous. I'm pretty sure it's real.
That's
It may be
awesome.
AI. I'm regularly confused, but I'm going to try and
Yes.
find the link for that and send it to you because I
Do.
was like, when I saw the one with yarn, I'm like, I have to get this for the Dia. I have no idea what it costs, but I don't care. I'll sell a kidney.
Um, I the only thing I want is um it's a jewelry cleaning thing called a sonicator. You
Oh
can
yeah,
buy
a sonic
them for
cleaner.
like 30 bucks on Amazon. I want one of those.
Hmm.
That's the only thing I want for you. And we're not doing real what hmm. We're doing presents, but we did presents like, "This is what I want, please buy that."
Hmm.
And then we're just giving cash to my son and his wife. And
Hmm.
the only person I bought gifts for this year was Kathy. I did send you
Hmm.
gifts, but I made those. But I bought actual gifts and gave them, that I have for Kathy, who is, if you don't know, my kind of my adopted sister, my best
Hmm.
friend. Um, she calls me bestie. So that's how we're playing Yule this year. And then I am making a ham for the first time, but
Hmm.
my oven works. My oven now
Our new
works.
Yeah, our new one arrives like this coming Saturday, just in time for the in-laws to get here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep, 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 yep.
Yep.
So
So
if
I'm excited about the oven being fixed.
Yeah, not having an oven, like I've got an air fryer and I've got a big microwave and I've got my gas range stove, so it's not like we're not starving, obviously, because Lord knows I can't stand to miss a meal. But the not having an oven is just it's a problem, and it's not like our oven doesn't work. It works sometimes, so you can't depend on it. So like
Right.
if yeah, the digital readout because it's got like a digital front thing, if that
Mm,
gets too warm or if like warm moist air comes out and
mm-hmm,
it like
mm-hmm.
fogs up, you can't do anything with it. It turns off and then it's just done. So we got a new furnace, now we're getting a new oven. I really hope we can buy this house because, the only thing we have to worry about after that maybe is the roof. So,
Yep. We we figured out that there are two there's an upper element and a lower element, and the lower
hmm
element is hidden. It is not exposed. And so what we
hmm
discovered was it was corroded,
mm,
which would explain why it won't come up to temperature because there's only one
hmm
heating element. It also will explain why the convection oven works, but not up to temperature, but it does work, is
hmm
because when you use convection, it turns on both. And so
hmm
they were trying to turn on both, but the top one was the only one doing it. So I'm
Yeah.
excited. The only thing is, I think my husband has taken, you know how most stoves have two racks,
hmm
right? I think my husband has taken a rack out of my stove. Well, let me rephrase. I know my husband has taken a rack out of my stove and lost it. He's lost the rack. Like he doesn't know where it is.
I mean, your house is not small, but it's not huge. And this is Tony.
No,
How did Tony lose a rat? Those are not small either. Like,
I don't know. I don't know what he did with it. I mean, this is a man who has stolen um the when we bought a new little stove desktop or countertop air fryer
hmm
uh stove kind of thing, right? Small little stove thing, toaster oven. And so the it was because the other one's thermometer was broken. So it would get
hmm
really, really hot. So Tony actually has it downstairs in his workshop and he uses it to heat up cold iron to harden it.
You realize the way you describe your husband, he sounds like the mad artificer, right? Like,
Oh, that's nothing. I mean, I know it sounds like that, but he's dating a woman who one day was in my house and I was replacing my coffee maker. And she was like, "Hey, can I have your old coffee maker?" And I said, "Sure. What are you going to do with it? Blow it up?" What? I'm going to blow it
mm,
up.
best of all
Why?
worlds.
Because that's what
Mm,
I do at my job. I blow things up. I was like, "Well, okay,
I want
sure."
context. In
She
what capacity does she blow things up?
for for she worked for at the time. She does not work this job any longer. I wouldn't mention it if she did. But she used to work for the FBI, and
Oh,
she was
okay.
part of the group that took household items and then, you know, it was a reverse engineering of bombs, is what it was. Like
hmm
that
Yeah.
domestic terrorists might could use. That was
Yeah.
her
No,
job.
that makes
She has a
sense. Yeah.
degree in chemistry and a degree in biology, and she's
hmm
super, super smart. But that at the time, that's what she was doing. She was blowing things up for the government. So that's the
Yep.
best way to
And
blow things up if the
that is
government lets
such,
you.
yes. And given our current government, who knows, right? Blowing things up may become a national pastime again. That is the best segue. That is like the best topic for segue into today's topic that we could have possibly come up with. And I love that we reached it organically in the way that we do. Um, because today, Dia, what are we talking about?
We were talking about spell work, especially defensive and offensive spell work.
That's right. It is time to look at the battle witchery of it all. So sadly, now that my brain actually pieces it together, the fact that the government blowing things up segues into defensive magic is probably the saddest segue that I could think of. But sadly, this is the world we live in. I mean, luckily, none of us are. Most of the people listening to this podcast are not in fact Venezuelan fishermen, so we're probably safe from government missiles. But
Oh my goodness.
yeah, I'm gonna warn the whole of the internet. The world events that have been going on have left me in a particularly sparky place. So, Miss Dia, I apologize for the impact on your carpal tunnels, but you may have to beep and edit today because I do not feel the need to censor myself even one shiny little bit. So,
Yep.
he's gonna
Yep.
be bitchy today, y'all. I'm sorry.
Woo.
Mm. So yeah, today we're talking about offensive and defensive magic, which is like when it's said out loud is like it's a sexy term, you know. Like I've got a friend who she says sometimes I put on my war witch hat and I'm like that sounds like it's out of a novel and I want to
Mm.
see that hat. Like so what does it
Yeah.
mean to be a war witch? And then I realized wait a minute, I'm actually talking to somebody who was in the service and who served in Afghanistan. So, what
Mm.
does that mean? And we had some really great, some of my most effective techniques come out of conversations with this person. So,
Hmm.
yeah, we're gonna get to see some of that old world good.
Good. Well, when we talk about spells in general, um, and magic in general, it's important to talk about just remind our audience about what UPG, VPG, and VGG is. UPG is unverified personal gnosis. What is that, Kyler?
I'm stuck on VPGG because that's the first time you've used that with me, and it sounds like a venereal disease. Um, I'm just gonna be real clear about that. Maybe we
Since
want to rework
this
the
is
acronym.
verified personal gnosis, maybe it is.
Well, there's also verifiable personal group gnosis, and
Gnosis,
that's
right?
the one that really sounds communicable, which is ironic because it is.
Because it
Yeah,
is.
that's it's the nature of it. This podcast recording may not ever see the light of day. You recognize this, right? Okay, so just as long as we're on the same page, so unverifiable personal gnosis is a thing that happens when people enter an ecstatic and deep state, like an alpha state. You are communing with the spirits, you're communing with gods, you are in that deepest part where all of the parts of you are kind of firing on the same cylinders. And you are part in this world, part in the world where practitioners live that, pardon the use of the term, muggles don't. And there we can see things that are deeply personal to us. Our brain interprets things using our internal symbol set. And so it's not always verifiable. It's not always repeatable because this wisdom is for us alone. It doesn't have to be a wisdom for everyone. And so, unverifiable personal gnosis, UPG, is think of it like your personal headcanon. It's
Mhm.
almost like your personal fanfic for how this interaction went. It is true for you, and that is all that matters. And verifiable personal gnosis would be the opposite of that, where it is repeatable and it has been verified by multiple people. So, a really good example of this is the Ferrars. Their drawing down series that they did across the globe, where they pulled down different goddesses and sometimes the same goddess and different, entirely different people, sometimes on different continents, and they got the same words again and again and again and again, and that is verifiable gnosis.
Yeah, for me, UPG has to do with the symbol sets that we individually use. And I
Hmm.
teach this that individuals all have a symbol set. Everybody, you have a symbol set. And you just have to discover what that symbol set is and what it means. And you know, it often has to do with personal events in your life. So I have an aversion to red roses because my best male friend sent me red roses to school and then before they could be delivered died. And so
Hmm.
I have this very clear understanding of what a red rose means to me, right? And it's
Hmm.
very different than what it might mean to someone else and what it's universally used as well. And so when I see red roses in my in my own symbol set, that has a very distinct meaning for me. And
Hmm.
often it can be related to death because of the situation in which I received a dozen red roses. So
Hmm.
that's a good example of an unverified personal gnosis. That symbol set will not have the same meaning for anybody else because of my very unique set of circumstances. It is my unverified personal gnosis. It became verified when over years, the red rose came up at certain times to denote death of very, very close loved ones. And so for me, that's verified for me. It's my verified personal gnosis. It means that I have seen it happen and I know it's going to happen. I have an example for verified personal gnosis that says Scott wrote down a detailed prediction of 9/11 before it happened. That would be a verified personal gnosis. I used to do this game where I used to play this game. And the game was, if someone went missing, I would take a piece of paper and I would write whether or not they were dead or alive and where they would be found. And then I would seal it in an envelope. And then my then husband would, when they were found, would get the envelope out and read the predictions. And I was right more than I was wrong. Right. More than you know, luck would have it. Right, above the law of average. So that was verified personal gnosis. And then there's verified group gnosis. And I think of that as verified unpersonal gnosis for groups, right? So it's a group's symbol set. There in my coven, the dragon has a very specific meaning, has a very specific look, has a very specific job. And that's something you don't know unless you're part of the group. And usually it's because it happens to you after you join the group. And we're like, oh yeah, that happens. Yeah, that's, now you're part of us. And so you have this happening to you, and nobody is surprised here because it happened to all of us. So that's a verified group gnosis. So I don't want to belabor the point. That is what those mean. And then the other thing, and I had mentioned this before, we did a whole podcast on the Woo scale. I have updated the Woo scale. I am now going to give you the updated Woo scale. So level 0 is the absolute skeptic. This is a believe it when I see it level. Some pagans have atheist leanings and don't believe in psychic abilities unless they're proven. My husband is one of those people. Number 1, level 1, belief in the gods, animism, energy of crystals, belief in angels, accepted belief in UFOs, meaning we know they exist because that's been verified. Dragons, fairies, nature spirits, and spiritual form. This level believes in the gods, goddesses, angels, spirits, guides, and natural spiritual existence of most inanimate objects. There's also belief that some form of unidentified flying objects exist and interact with the world. The idea that we are not alone in the universe. That's level 1. Level 2 is reincarnation, common psychic abilities, and energy. Here's a commonly accepted belief in paganism, reincarnation. And I place the ability to feel and experience energy of a space, people, objects, and auras. And I include common psychic skills such as empath, psychometrics, clairsentience, claircognizance, precognition, and clairvoyance. All the clairs are in level 2. Level 3 is there is no coincidence. This is also known as magical thinking. And it's the common belief that nothing happens in the universe without it being part of some of the universal plan. This is a principle taught to pagans as a matter of course. So that's level 3. Level 4 is the laws or axioms of magic, modern astrology, and astrology in general. Psychic attacks have physical consequences. And the laws and axioms of magic and the ability to energetically interact with the universe to affect change is level 4. Level 5 is crystal or with healing or psychic properties, telekinesis, moving small objects, moving a flame, moving insects. And Atlantis was a place, just a place, not some supernatural place, just a place. And this is a step above simple energetic auras of objects. It's the belief that energy can interact with you and others to change one's emotional, mental, and physical being. And then And this is also the spiritual manifestations of beings and thought forms. So spiritually manifesting a thought form to do a thing spiritually. Level 6 is telepathy, retrocognition, astral projection, and past lives. Because not all pagans believe in this.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond the medium beliefs is level 6. Not everyone believes that telepathy, mind to mind communication, knowledge from the past, astral projection, or memories from past lives are real. This is where they can't go any further. And we do have pagans that kind of stop at before 6 or right at 6
Mm-hmm.
and they're stretching it to be in 6. Level 7 is cryptology. So the belief that the Loch Ness monster is an actual physical represented being, and that thought forms can be actually physically erected. So it's not just some psychic ghostly apparition, it's a physical being that exists. That is level 7. Level 8 is UFO abduction, sex with gods and the spirits. Atlantis and ancient super civilizations were supernatural, advanced civilizations, and supernatural powers, telekinesis of medium to large objects, Palladians and other specific aliens interacting in physical existence. So that's level 8. So now you've left the realm of anything provable. Level
Mm-hmm.
9 is tinfoil protection, UFO pregnancy, and stickers on your cell phone to cut radiation. And my explanation of this is here is a belief that has been absolutely disproven by scientific study and evidence. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you're in level 9, you have left the realm of reality and
Mm-hmm.
reality that we can verify. And then level 10 is entities asking you to harm yourself or others or perform sacrifices that are of a human nature and terroristic activities. This is where woo becomes mental illness. That's level 10. So I've reworked the woo theory, woo scale. That's what it is. I hope you have noted which one you are. And it's important when you talk about spells because how your spell manifests has a lot to do with where you lie on the scale, right? And so I wanted to mention that. So I have done that. It's now time for Kyler to talk.
So I do want to put out a caveat to everyone. With the things that Dia just read out, you don't have to agree with every single thing in that level. Like
Right,
nobody agrees like across the board. Everybody
right,
comes to each level kind of in their own way. But if you believe in one or a couple of those things, you at least touch on that level. And so we are all like a smattering. Like I actually have a really hard time believing in a lot of cryptozoology, but at the same time, like I know aliens. I'm pretty sure they visited this planet. Like we've seen too many things in the sky. The government has too much evidence of things they can't identify, and
right,
at our level of technology, there are only so many things it can be
right.
for us to not be able to identify it. Um, but yeah, no, if you're a 9 or 10, that is a
Yeah,
time where we're not saying the C word. We're not saying there's a craziness going on. We're saying
right.
that maybe you need to really look because I've had a lot of folks that I have worked with in the past in various counseling manifestations of my life that live very comfortably at lower levels. If you are always at a lower level or always have been, and suddenly you're in an 8, 9, or 10 with very little prompting to get there, that is also a time when you kind of just want to take a step back, take a look, maybe speak with somebody you trust
Mm-hmm.
and not disregard them because they may be saying something that you don't agree with or you would prefer not be true, because that is also a sign of mental illness. And willful mental illness is much more difficult to deal with. So, all of
Well,
this
and
we
I would
say
also,
because we care.
right. And I would also say that level 9, especially, I think could be an ego issue. Just this
Hmm.
absolute belief that you are absolutely right and a refusal to look at anything contrary. That's an ego issue. If you
Hmm.
live in a space where no one can tell you anything, that's ego. That's not
Yeah.
surety, right? That goes beyond confidence and into a dangerous place possibly. So
Yeah. And
I just wanted to say that.
well, no, and that's a really good point because that is usually that usually comes from a place of trauma. Like when you're that
Yes.
confident, it actually comes out of the opposite. Like when you're projecting that level of confidence,
Right.
that is like the level of narcissism, and narcissism
Right.
almost always comes out of a need to protect yourself, like a
Right.
raging feeling of insecurity or vulnerability, not measuring up, not meeting judgment, all of that. There's actually a really phenomenal book. So this is going to be this statement is going to be geared kind of towards our male listeners, because the expectations of that in this kind of still male dominated society, king, warrior, magician, lover. I don't think I get the order of those right, but it's a
King, lover, magician, warrior, sage.
is sage a part of it?
I thought
Is
so.
that part of the title? I have it over. I'd
I
have to
don't
look it
remember.
up.
I'd have
Anyway,
to look it up.
it is. If you put in like the first four, it'll definitely come up on Amazon. It is a fairly famous book in pagan circles. This talks about the ego and archetypes and why you may get those things, and especially right now, considering the topic of the day and where the world is, masculine ego and the hoo-yah of it all is this book actually helped me to understand how we got into this world in the first place. So there is actually a thing that Dia and I, this is one of those things that we 100% agree on, and it is a phrase. It's some folks call it the witch's pyramid, the witch's cauldron, and that is called to know, to will, and to dare. And then there's a fourth leg of that, to keep your mouth shut.
Yep.
But the most important, well, no, they're all equally important. To know, to will, and to dare. Anytime you're going to do magic, you need to know a few things. You have to be certain of a few things. Otherwise, magic is not the right answer. This is kind of the litmus test that you would need to use before doing defensive and offensive magic, because at the very least, you're going to want to know how to target it. If you are constantly spending your magic in 100 different directions, some of them contradictory, you're not going to have the biggest oomph. Magic is supposed to be used in a judicious way and in a concentrated way. Because if you're constantly willing things, eventually that muscle's going to get tired because you're overexerting it. You have so much influence in this world. If you waste that influence, or you're not spendthrifty enough with it, when you need it, it may not be there. You may not have the vitality you need. I mean, at the very least, you may just be exhausted from constantly fighting in every direction. I know I certainly feel that way right now, living in a world that feels like it's on fire, and the fuel for that fire is utter abject stupidity. So, how did Michael put it when we had him on? It's like, why are we in the dumbest timeline?
Right.
Yeah, that one resonated with me. So what is
So
to know?
before I get to know, I wanted to
Okay.
say that the book is King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, and it is free on Kindle Unlimited. Free
Oh,
on Kindle Unlimited. So you can read it for free that way if you have Kindle Unlimited. To know. To know, I always say to know is to have a basic understanding of the majority of pagan principles. That's the to know. That is to me the first degree. If you can have, I like to call it the walk into any circle and know what's going on
mm-hmm. Yep,
level,
that's a very good way of
right?
putting it.
And that's to me to know. But it's also knowledge of self, because one of the first laws of magic is knowledge, the law of knowledge, and the sub law of that is the law of self knowledge. The more you know of yourself, the
Mm-hmm.
more powerful your magic becomes, because you understand yourself and your ego and your id, and you are able to work within those constructs and confines to the betterment of yourself and others. So to know, that's to know. What is
Mm-hmm.
to do?
To do is to actually have the chutzpah to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Every action has a series of corresponding reactions. You know, I very much look at the ripple metaphor, or analogy rather. So when you drop a stone into a pond, it sends ripples out. You do
Yep.
nothing in a vacuum. Um, Wait, to do, you mean to will?
To will. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
I
said
was
to
like
do.
to
I meant
do.
to
Yeah.
will.
So- but it's much the same thing. Like you to change the flow of the pattern around you, you have to have the will to do that. You had to have the will, whether you are completely entity based or you're energy based, no matter how you look at it, your will is the tool by which you are affecting the etheric. So you are projecting yourself, your animus, your the animating force of your life into the universe. And that may be to create spiritual allies. It may be to project your own vital essence into something. It may be a combination of both. Most practitioners I know are actually a combination of energy and entity. I know I certainly am. Like I pontificate a whole lot about entity, but at the same time, I still charge candles the same way I always did. So that is the will. Once you start an action, you have to have the will to see it all the way through. And if you're not committed enough to it, you have no business doing magic on it.
Mhm.
Because once you start that process, once the arrow leaves your bow, you have set in course, in motion, a series of events that can't just be stopped. Now, you may be able to mitigate it, you may be able to pull
Mhm.
some of it back, but once you do a thing, you are committed to doing the thing, and your will is the fuel. So you are tied to that working. And so you better make sure you have enough will to see it through. And then to have it actually having the testicular fortitude or breasticular fortitude, whichever may be the case, that is where we come into the third of that, which is
To dare.
to dare. I used to use the phrase, or I use the analogy, sending a spell out, actually casting your will out, is akin to standing on the tallest mountain in the universe, raising your fist to the heavens and telling the gods, this is going to happen. It takes a certain amount of spleen to do that because you've
Hmm.
got to be a little audacious. Magic is the audacity.
Yes. Yes. I like how you say that. Magic is the audacity. I think the other way that I think about this is being. Once you have done or willed something, you there's a place where you become a part of the universe and the universe becomes a part of you. And then therefore, but that to have that understanding, to have that place of being, to have, as the high priestess cards puts it, one foot in the mundane and one foot in the realm of the mighty
Hmm.
ones. When you have that balance and have that all the time, then you can affect change in a way that you can't do just with simple knowledge. You must
Hmm.
have the will, the fortitude to do it, but you also must have the audacity to do it. I like that.
Yes. And then there is the final one, which ironically enough, very few people talk about.
Nope.
And that is to keep your mouth the hell shut during and after your workings. If you're doing glory itself, it is the joy of reaching into the raw ether of the universe and shaping something to your will. You do not have to broadcast that. That is ego. That is
Right.
insecurity. That is a whole lot of things. But it's also dangerous and it's also self inhibiting. There is power in secrecy. There
Mm-hmm.
is sometimes safety in secrecy. If you
Mm-hmm.
open your mouth and people think you're constantly slinging spells all over the place,
Mm-hmm.
people get nervous. I come from the South. I was reading books on, I think it was Silver Ravenwolves to Ride a Silver Broomstick. I hadn't actually read it
Right.
in years. I was one of the first books I owned. And my mom wanted to know what was going on. Like what is all this stuff that he's doing? So she borrowed it without asking and was reading it, and it somebody happened to notice it in her bag at work, and she was a detention officer at the time. She was working in law enforcement before she became a ASO deputy, and one of her coworkers thought she knew how to put roots on people. And
Mm-hmm.
detention officers by and large are very superstitious, and she got called into her lieutenant's office because of it.
Mm-hmm.
The perception that you are doing this kind of work can cause you a problem in your life. And the more people who know about it, the more innate resistance there will be to your will manifesting in the world.
Hmm.
Like a lot of this is subtle work. And if people are inert against it, they're going to resist. And then it's not just the natural flow of things, it's also people resisting you with their own essence. And that's a more subtle abstract thing, but it is an effect that can have a very derailing influence on the magics that you do.
Hmm. No, I was taught to be silent. Was the last one. And I was
Hmm.
also taught part of that is because if you're doing a degree system, the first degree is to know, the second degree is to will, the third degree is to dare, and then the elder is to be silent. And you are being
Hmm.
silent because people are coming to you for their to get their you have people's confidence, and you have to be
Hmm.
judicious about keeping that confidence. So that was one of the ways that Dick explained it specifically,
Hmm.
to
That's
me.
well put. Yeah. No, that's actually I've heard it a couple of different ways. That's the first time I've heard it quite that way, and I actually really like that. That dovetails very, very nicely into it. Um, so we have talked about today's podcast. Now that we've covered some of the foundational stuff, we are going to share some of our most effective favorite spells that we would use in certain situations. We've created some scenarios,
Mm-hmm.
and we're gonna toss them back and forth and see how each of us would react in that situation.
Okay.
Uh, who wants to go first?
Do you want to go first? Do you want to ask or receive? Ooh.
Mm. Oh, it's been so long since somebody's asked me that. God, hours at least. So this morning, my husband brought me coffee, guys, because I got to sleep in a little bit. I've had a long stretch of days working because we're understaffed. And he gave me a loving, warm kiss before he walks out because we are disgustingly affectionate. And Dia made retching sounds in my ear because she's a mean face and hates love. And yeah. So I think I will. You ask me a question first.
Okay. So I wanted to know how you would go about protection of someone you know, just someone you know, third, fourth tier person versus
Mm,
someone in your coven or immediate family.
I'm gonna get so judged for this. So if it's okay, so I'm just gonna put out there. I have two people that live inside of my soul. Okay. One of those is the voice of some of the most elevated, evolved, loving Aquarian people I know. They want almost Piscean. They want love and happiness and granola and peace and all of those things. And then the other half is a spell slinging southern shit kicker who gives no shit and thinks most people are hot garbage. And these two are in constant conflict. Like some days I wake up and I am like redneck Gandhi. And then other days I'm just like, you a dumpster fire. Somebody grab me my kerosene. Like I never really know what I'm gonna get until someone puts the quarter in and Zoltan spits out the little card, and then Tom Hanks becomes big. So I never know these things. So it kind of depends. If this is a third or fourth tier person, it's really going to depend on the type of threat that faces them. Is this
Yeah.
because of discrimination? Is this potentially
Right.
violent? If
Right.
this is physical and they are just being persecuted, there's talismans, there's cloaking, there's all kinds of
Right.
shielding. You can remove that person from the other
Mm-hmm.
person's ire. Most people who are just swimming in a sea of discrimination and bigotry or xenophobia, they have lots of different targets. Their problem is an internal one. it is not necessarily the circumstance that this person directly finds themselves in. So, generally, hiding, moving them out of the way, non conflict is the easiest way to handle that because the moment you enter a conflict, you are hardening both positions. And the
Mm.
easiest way, like I learned this from studying martial arts, the easiest way is to avoid the conflict or to ward it away. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's generally the way I go. If it is somebody in my inner circle, scorched earth is not off the table. It kind of
Mm-hmm.
depends. Again, it comes down
Right.
to, is it emotional? Is it physical? Is it social? Um, if it is physical, I will try to disarm the situation first. If that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work, like if it is an acute direct threat, that is mundane and that is magical. Because don't forget, folks, you do have mundane options, and the magical is aided by the mundane, or the mundane can be aided by the magical, six of one, half a dozen of the other. So one thing I have done, I have completely hidden someone in my inner circle from someone who was emotionally abusing them.
Mm-hmm.
Not always easy to do if there is a really close rope connecting those two. When I say rope, I mean like the etheric attachments that we have to everybody that we're close to. So
Mm-hmm.
the first thing I do there is I make sure I'm on the same wavelength with this person who's close to me. Do you want magical protection? Because the people in
Mm-hmm.
my inner circle, none of them are lightweights when it comes to personality
Mm-hmm.
and personal will. If they want my help, I will give it. I will happily
Mm-hmm.
give it, but I can't fight them and
Mm-hmm.
whatever else is going on at the same time. Um, a battle on two fronts is a losing proposition. So make sure we're on the same page. I do a shit ton of divination. Like what is
Right.
going on? What are the, and that's the part of that to know. Like you need to know what the influences are. The person you're trying to protect, did they ask for this to happen? Did they go and kick someone's anthill? Did they poke the bear and then this is the
Mm-hmm.
reaction?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're already fighting uphill if that's the case.
Right.
Like you need to know what's going on with this. So with this one particular instance that I have in my mind, I did a cord cutting. I cut that etheric connection between the two,
Mm-hmm.
changed mailing addresses, changed phone numbers. We did the mundane. I created a talisman to keep them, like we did a greater working, and then we keyed that to a talisman that they wore on them, and we created one for both of their two children. And it
Mm-hmm.
was bound as closely and as tightly as I could make it so that this person would not think of them. Now, that's
Mm-hmm.
only going to have so much impact. If this person is fixated,
Mm-hmm.
obsession is a very powerful thing, but
Mm-hmm.
you still want to put in that fog so that that's not the first thing they go to.
Mm-hmm.
For their home, they actually wound up moving homes, and I actually created house wards that had the strongest look away on it that I possibly could. And I actually found out about a year after all this went down, he drove through that neighborhood like 5 or 6 times looking for her car and passed right by it. So lookaways are, I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
they're like a second level, they're a first to second level glamour. Like they're not that difficult to do, especially if you
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of need driving it. But I actually planted ward stones on the four corners of the property. I created the whole structure. Um, so yeah, yeah, that's how I dealt with that situation. And a
Yeah.
lot of it is contextual. Like
Yep.
I have actually been so angry once that I didn't realize why I was so enraged until I started hearing the padding of dog feet behind me, and I realized, holy shit, I have to stop what I'm doing because I was casting without even realizing I was doing it. And I was walking down a road just in a complete seethe because someone threatened someone I loved. And I realized that I was calling for help and something was answering and I had to shut that shit off quick. But that was, oh yeah, no, I don't run. I ran home. Like, yeah.
Right.
And yeah, I was like, okay, I'm not alone. I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna go close my door. I'm gonna be good. Line of salt. We're good. Okay. Winchester's come save me.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so my turn to ask you a question.
Okay.
Um, So say you have a coworker who's gossiping about you at work.
Mm,
Maybe they found out what you do on your weekends. And I'm not talking
hmm
about LARP because everybody should LARP. That's just a given. Um, but they are creating work drama. They are gossiping about
hmm
you. They are sullying your good name, girl. What would you
hmm
do about that?
So I always go to defensive spells first,
Hmm.
always. And so I would do two things. And both of them I have done, and they have worked very well. The first thing I would do is I would put a freezer spell on the person.
Hmm.
So I want to freeze the action. I want to freeze this person and their ability to make that gossip happen. And you get an old fashioned tray for ice, and you
Hmm.
put in a piece of paper, the person's name, and all the better if you have a piece of them. And then you stick them in the ice cube, put water in it, and put them in the freezer. And I also will write information like how what I'm freezing for. I might put gossip on the bottom of the
Hmm.
with an indelible pen, that kind of thing. And that's the first thing I would do. And the second thing I would do is react, proactively start talking to people that are in my sphere of influence. Like if I'm worried that they're talking smack about my
Hmm.
paganness, I might go to my boss and just say, I'm pagan and this is what it means and this is what I'm not doing and this is what I am doing, and just
Hmm.
just be give the information. And that's not always an option.
Hmm.
It is in my world, but it may not be in your world. But you need to do something. And then the other part that you can do with that is when people try to gossip to you about this situation, once
Hmm.
you've done the freezer spell, you need to say, I don't want to gossip.
Yeah.
I don't want to participate in this gossip. So we're not going to talk about this in this
Hmm.
manner. I only want to talk about uplifting things and uplifting people. And you'd be surprised how much reputation you gain when you behave in that manner. So mine, as always, is a magic and a mundane. I do a little bit of both.
No, agreed. That is definitely like you always want to have like mundane world actions to add to. If you don't mind, I actually have like a bit of appellation work that I learned from a friend years ago that was
Mm-hmm,
specifically geared to this. So if you come into possession of a strand of hair of the person who is
mm-hmm,
doing the gossiping, now I'm not saying walk around with a pair of scissors, folks. That is not at all what I am ever suggesting, because that's going to open a whole lot of things that will only make at least gossip much worse for you. Um,
right.
yeah. But if, say, they shed like a Pekingese, and you happen to pick that hair up, one of the things that they would do in the hill country, they would take that hair and they would take herbs and maybe some ribbon and they would braid them together and make a little wind chime out of it and they would hang it. And every time the wind, they would ask their spiritual helpers to assist with this. And the air elementals, when the air would blow through it, it would be like the words of gossip flowing through the hair over their
Mm-hmm,
ears, and it would turn their gossip back on them because people who gossip are always afraid that people are gossiping about them.
mm-hmm,
Always understand the nature of the people that you're working against and turn that nature against them. It's called the
mm-hmm,
craft of the wise for a reason. We fight smart, not strong. I mean, we do fight strong, but we fight smart first. And
mm-hmm.
that's always been one of my most just pettily juiciest bits of like practical magic
Right.
because I think magic should be ironically petty. Like I don't know, maybe it's just because that's my inner spirit. Like I if I was a drag performer, it would be my name would be Petty LaBelle. Like I am if you move me to that place, I'm inherently petty. Like yeah.
Right. And I think, along those lines, when you talk about no gossip, I have always said, I don't want to gossip about that person, mostly because you never know what gossip someone is saying about you if they'll gossip with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I always have planted the seed. What are they saying about you? Like without
Mm-hmm.
saying, what are they saying about you? You want to
Yeah.
plant that seed because it undermines their authority and their
Mm-hmm.
believability. So yeah, I like that. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is my current one.
Mm-hmm.
Draw a familiar to you.
Ooh. So I know a couple of different ways to do this. But my personal favorite, and it's going to be the simplest. It may not be the sexiest, so I apologize if anybody's like wanting some big tin foil paper hat ritual coolness. Uh, I go for a walk, often in the woods,
Mm-hmm.
and I say hi because it's not more difficult than that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I have experienced. Let me see if I can distill this down. Because I've never actually had that question asked like in this context before. So you find me
Mm-hmm.
somewhat flat-footed, which nature helped me with already. When you are a big shiny thing, spirits tend to notice you anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm constantly kind of surrounded. Like I because of how I view the world, I'm always swimming in the sea of spirits around me. And the ones that I can resonate with, there's a kind of a frisson, a harmony. And the ones that I can work with in that way, I can feel it pretty quickly. Now, obviously, when I was a young starting out practitioner, that wasn't necessarily the case, and there were definitely some relationships that I moved away from over time. But the ones that really have something that's going to add to me, that are going to teach me, that are going to be those familiars, those allies, and help me deepen and grow myself in my practice, I can almost feel that now. And so it's almost a sense of when I am open for that, the call is there. It's like they can see me and I can see them. And it's for me at least, it's really that simple. Now that being said, you can also cast your circle and you can send out a call and you word it very specifically and all that, which is what I learned to do when I was, a young buck and all that. But the really it's nothing more than I mean, I once found a new friend by going swimming. Like I went to Manatee Springs in Florida and I got in the water. And by the time I got out of the water, I'd made a friend. Like that was my whole experience. I don't know that I can actually be more linear than that.
No, I think that's good. I was actually thinking about a physical, like cat familiar,
Oh, yeah.
but
So,
I'll answer that.
yeah.
So, and I asked this because I've been missing. I had a really loving cat once, and they died unfortunately.
Mhm.
But I've wanted that cat back, and
Yeah.
really like just recently have been really missing that connection between a witch and its familiar cat. And so I have been thinking, just thinking about the types of energy and connectivity that I want with that animal. It's the same way that I picked Castiel to be my service dog. I
Hmm.
I envisioned Castiel before I envisioned him as a fully grown adult dog doing the specific things I needed him to do. And then I went and found that energy in a puppy. I can't explain it any other way,
Hmm.
but just understood what the energy was that I was looking for. And then, of course, we did some puppy. There's some very specific things. If you ever want to know, you can hit me up. But there's a specific way to look for a service dog, and we did that as well. But ultimately, it was the energy that connectivity that drew me to Castiel. And
Hmm.
he's not my familiar. And I want to make that very clear. He is my service dog, not my familiar. And so, but the same principles apply. And what were you going to say? I cut you off.
Well, okay, so if we're talking about like physical beings who anchor in that way, you kind of find me in the valley between. My soul is not ready to bring in another yet. It has been 3.5, almost 4 years now since I lost Bowden, and I truly have no idea when I'm going to be ready for another relationship like that.
Hmm.
He was the most cantankerous, bitchy dog I have ever known in my life. He was also the single smartest animal that I mean, he was smarter than most horses. That dog could undo padlocks. When he wanted a snack, he'd open the fridge and get it himself. Like, I've lived with roommates who had less agency than this dog. And there were times, a couple of times, when I was in a really bad place. When I get to the point where I'm overwhelmed, I sleep. I disengage and I go to sleep. And Bowden was never he was never a cuddler. He was a husky wolf mix. When he wanted affection, he would come over, he'd put his head on you, you give him affection, he would judge you, and then he would walk away. And that was how it worked for him. But there were a couple of times when I was in a very, very bad place. I would retreat and I would go to sleep. And I remember I in my youth I was better at it then than I am now because I was more disciplined. But I remember distinctly one time I was lucid dreaming and he was in the dream with me, and when I woke up, he was right there. He had dream walked with me and
Hmm.
helped to kind of bring me out of that depression. And it was when you have a familiar like that, it is less like a pet, even a member of the family. There's a very unique
Right.
relationship when you have a
Hmm.
companion like that. But a familiar is different. A familiar is
Yeah.
almost a working partner. In a way, it's like a
Right.
service dog, but on a different level.
Yes.
And Bowden was that for me. I remember I had an ex who's still one of my very bestest friends. He is a phenomenal man. It was like Bowden had two dads at the time, and he did the same thing. Like, I remember he came to me one day and he was like, I had a dream about Bowden last night and I woke up and I felt better. And I'm like, what were you doing in the dream? And he told me, and I'm like, mm-hmm. And what was the last thing you remember from the dream? And he was like, I remember I was walking out of the woods and I had like my hand in Bowden's ruff and he was like leading me out of the woods. And I'm like,
Hmm.
I want you to sit with that for a while and kind of boil down what that imagery might mean for you. And
Yep.
yeah, it took him 3 days and later he came back and he was kind of wide eyed. I'm like, yeah, that's what he does for me too. Like, he's my
Hmm.
guide when I'm lost. And so 16, a husky who made it to the age of 16.
Hmm.
That is usually they get hit by a car by the age of 10 because huskies are brilliant and stupid and they do all manner of things. But yeah, it's probably still going to be a little while before I can re-engage with a relationship like that. Oh, Dia, you made it all deep and sappy.
Sorry.
It's your fault, not
Well,
mine.
make it not deep and sappy. What do you got?
Oh, I think we accidentally answered my second one already. So let me see. Oh, you brought up being able to go to an employer and saying, I'm
Hmm.
pagan, this is what it is. So, flipping that coin, if you have an employer who's targeting you in a discriminatory way, either race, ethnicity, sexual preference, religion, whatever, how might you protect yourself?
Mm. So Dick Sells taught me how to make this stuff called banishing powder. And I would utilize it in the manner of banishing that kind of attention. So I
Mm-hmm.
might still do the freezer spell, but I would add banishing powder to it and a more directed attention to what I'm banishing.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also look for another job.
Yes.
I would look for another job and I would do magic and energy around the job that I want. And Tony did this. Tony has, we live in the South, and Tony's worked for some family owned companies that were very Christian in nature. And he
Mm-hmm.
got nervous. And so we actually did a spell around finding a company that had an HR team
Mm-hmm.
specifically, and that was that that was more worried about the work than they were about you, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. and kind of that distancing. This is work, and what they do in their own time is their own thing. And those two are, and he now works in that environment, and it's the second place he's worked in that environment, that type of environment, since we did that spell. But it was very specific about how to find a job. I wouldn't just go looking for a job. I would go looking for a different situation. Because if you're in that situation, that is the universe saying, what are you going to do? And how you answer that question depends on whether or not it's going to come back at you again. So if you find that you're in these situations over and over and over again, you're not answering the question. You're just running from the question. So you need to be decisive about how you answer that, and make sure that you put out precisely what it is you want to do and how you want to go about doing it. So banishing powder would definitely be one. And that leads me to a point I wanted to make. I am holding up the book, The Element Encyclopedia of 5,000 Spells. And it's got all kinds of little tags and stuff in it from spells I've done. And one of the reasons I wanted to point this out is that there's several different types of banishing powders in here. And I wanted to say to you, if you have a book about spells, that book is a suggestion. You don't have to go to the end of the earth to find. I could never find Singula grass. It was a very specific type of grass that somebody used. And I could never find it. It's an herb, and I could never find it. And so you have to kind of think of what it is you're trying to do, and always go looking for, if I don't have this, what are some alternatives that I might have that I could use? This is where kitchen witchery is your friend, right? You don't have to have all the weird and unusual items to do a spell. You just need to understand a 1-to-1 ratio, right? And also in spells like banishing powder and things like that, it is about the proportions. The proportions have meaning. And so even if you change the amount of something, change the thing, don't change the proportions to it. So if it's a 1-to-2 ratio or a 1-1-1 ratio, or whatever the ratio is, you want to maintain that ratio. And that is how I made Agrippa's, I call it the Agrippa. It's actually Agrippa's plague powder. And you burn it on charcoal. And I made it during the COVID years, and managed to keep, when I had that going on a regular basis, most of the people in my coven did not get the COVIDs. When they stopped doing it, they got the COVIDs. So, take it for what you will. Agrippa knew stuff, I believe. And so, but I call it Agrippa's because it's Agrippa's plague powder. And you can find that actually on the internet.
So as a heads up, the singular grass that you mentioned, that is one of the lesser known names for it. I have encountered this before. So kunai grass, blady grass, or spear grass are other names for it. But if you can't find any of those, you can use crabgrass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The thing to remember, a lot of these spells, folks, they utilize folk names. These names change from region to region to region. If you can find what the actual Latin name is, the actual like genus and phylum name and all that, the scientific name, that's what I'm looking for. You can then use the internet to find out what the folk names of that scientific name are, because 9 times out of 10, there's something common that you can get easy access to. Like for instance, calendula. What is another name for calendula? It's marigold.
I do not know. Oh,
calendula is a type of marigold. Yeah, and it's like, so calendula is like nature's Neosporin. It's an anti-scarring. It's anti-inflammatory. Like if you have a cut or something you're afraid of scarring, put calendula on it.
Dandelion is a good option for that as well. And that's I'm glad you mentioned this, because one of the other things you can do once you know exactly what it is you're dealing with is you can put into to the internets, you can ask the name of the plant in this region of the United States or of
Mm-hmm.
Europe or whatever, and it will bring up a one-to-one comparison. So it'll say,
Yep.
this is what it is in your region, or this is what that plant is, or the closest plant that we can find. And then
Right.
you can be utilizing things you can find in your area, which is the best way to do
Yes.
magic, because it involves the the local spirits and energies. It adds that to the energy that you're
Mm-hmm.
doing. And that's really, magic is about layers, and the more layers you can build, the more powerful your magic will be. So the more associations you have, the more
Mm-hmm.
layers you do, the longer it takes. The All of this plays into how effective it's going to be. And it doesn't have to always be like Kyler said. He would go out into the woods and say, "Hey," it doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
be um, complicated, but it is true in magic that if you build your associations, you build the power of the spell that you are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what herbs and incense and oils and rocks and things like that. That's what all of those are for, to build those associations,
Yep.
so that that association is then creating the magic as well as your energy being put into it.
Yeah, and there is a caveat that I want to put in there too, because this is something that, especially with like my 101 students, I would encounter a lot. So if you're looking at like building your collection of tools and all of that, most of the books are going to say go out into the forest, find a staff. You if you find a sapling or you find a piece of like felled wood or something like that,
Right.
and it tells you ask. All the books tell you to ask. Very few people actually take that time, and this is kind of a bit
Mm-hmm.
of an American ego issue.
Yep.
We, even as practitioners, we constantly have to push back against the entitlement of we want this thing, we should be able to have this thing.
Mm-hmm.
When you go and you find an herb, when you are looking to either substitute or you're looking for something like singular grass, and you find a supplier where you can go and get it, don't just assume that the spirit or the energy of that particular bit of grass wants to help you in this work. This is very specific. The much like say like Chinese medicine, not every remedy is going to fix the same thing over and over. We all have different balances. Every situation is different. It's like a fingerprint. There is no one size fits all spell for anything. And if you take the time to create these relationships, like Dia said, your magic is going to be so much stronger for that because you are taking the time and you're working in concert. You're working harmoniously with all of the spirits, the energies of that space. I moved from Florida. My besom was a Florida broom. It had a piece of Florida crepe myrtle, and then it had grasses. It had wetland grasses that I gathered and I dried, and we had a whole podcast about besom versus besom. But when I got out here, it still had the same power, the same oomph, but it wasn't right anymore. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't right. And I knew it was time to retire that broom. And so I
Mm-hmm.
took the staff from that and I've made my mother a cane. I've turned that besom into a cane because I sat and I talked to it and it let me know what it wanted to be. And I'm a maker, I work with wood, I work with all these different
Mm-hmm.
materials, but it knew that its time as a besom had come to an end. And instead of giving it the threefold death, it wanted to continue to be useful. And after that much use, because this was the besom I used through multiple groups and all that, like my coven used it. It was the primary besom for the coven that came with me whenever we disbanded. It didn't want to go back into the earth. It still had things to do, and so now it supports my mother, which
Mm-hmm.
I love because Lord
Yep.
knows she needed some sweeping away of old things anyway. So that same
Mm-hmm.
energy carried forward. So I'm in the process of building a new one with things from my new home because the
Right.
energy of this place, the spirits of this place are so different than Florida, which I am super thankful for. So
Yep.
yeah, everywhere that you live is going to be capable of unique flavors of magic. Spend time exploring that because that's absolutely beautiful.
Yep. And I think, that's kind of what I wanted to end with, is this attitude of the top three things you need when you do magic. And we've talked about the will. We've talked about creating these layered associations. And now we've talked about utilizing the spirits of the land around you that you actually are part of, and
Hmm.
and involving those spirits into your magic and into what you're doing. Um, and I think that those are all really good uh, things to look at. Sorry, my phone is falling. Um, I think those are all three good things to look at. Is there anything that we're missing that we should look at?
Hmm. There's an old phrase, and this is not specific. This is a general piece of life advice for the practitioner, and it is something that I have learned by going through multiple degrees at the University of Hard Knocks. The people who often find themselves drawn to the craft, by and large, are not mainstream people. They don't feel accepted by the mainstream. In this world of social media and judgment, it is very, very easy to find yourself feeling spat upon, dejected, rejected, dismissed, judged. I have never met someone so strong that rejection rolls off them like water off a duck's back. Rejection is a brutal, terrible thing. We are social creatures. That being said, when you find your way into the craft, it is fundamentally empowering. The freedom from feeling like you have to take other people's shit is
Mm-hmm.
intoxicating. And it takes a while. That pendulum's always a swinging. It takes time to be able to balance that in such a way that you walk through life in what I have found to be the best way, and that is to walk lightly and to carry a big stick. Just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you have to let people know you can do a thing. It doesn't mean you have to be the loudest voice all the time. It doesn't mean you have to take up more space in a room than you actually need to. Some of us do that automatically. We don't mean to. Trust me. If I could sit back and be quiet, if I possessed the neurological capacity to do that, my life would have been so much easier, guys. Like, I don't fight because I want to. I'm just an obstinate jackass. This is the way I was built, okay? And there is no romance in it. There is no, ooh, look at that in it. None whatsoever. I come from the most dunder-headed, thick-skulled people you can possibly imagine. I am the most reasonable person in my family, and I will wake up some days and I am just a belligerent ass for no reason than the stars aligned in the belligerent ass, like, formation. And frankly, that's a very slow moving constellation. It is predominant in my sky more often than it should be. But if you possess the ability, or you can develop that ability, walk lightly and carry a big stick. You don't always have to be the Billy Badass. But if you were ever put in that situation again, try to cultivate for yourself the knowledge that if someone messes with you or your loved ones, they will not make that mistake a second time.
Mm-hmm.
That is what it means to walk through life with a little bit of grace and some restraint. And if you employ that, you will have all the power you need when the time comes to let someone know that you are not the one and it is never the time.
Right. It's the be silent part of the equation that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Um, Being able to know things, but not and know that knowledge doesn't mean you have to speak that into the universe. Knowledge,
There you go.
sometimes knowing about the universe itself is the burden that you choose to take on because you're a witch. And I
Hmm.
actually had this conversation just yesterday with a good friend of mine about being psychic, the part of the burden of a psychic is that they know things and they don't always say those things. It's not necessary. And especially if you're a good psychic, it's certainly not necessary, right? You have confidence enough in your ability. You don't need the whole world to believe in you because you believe in you.
That's right. That is absolutely right. We were looking at natal charts the other day at work because it was painfully slow. And the gremlin that lives in my soul comes out when it doesn't have something to occupy it. And I had forgotten my iPad, so I couldn't draw. And so I was just looking over people's natal charts. Astro.com got worked pretty hard the other day.
Yep.
And after everybody kind of walked away, my manager, one of my managers, is sitting there and we're chatting. She's like, "It's so cool you know how to do all that." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I've got lots of interests. We're just not going to look too heavy at that. This is not the droid you're looking for." And, but I did say, I'm like, half the trick in doing stuff like this is knowing what not to say and when not to say it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And she was like, "No," she's like, "I can get that." Well, I think looking at the
Yeah,
clock, that brings us about to time.
it is. We have wrapped up yet another podcast today.
Oh,
My resiliency corner today is go out and find the local indigenous plants that are used in your area for magical and even for physical purposes, right? Find out what the local lore is about what's in your area and what you can access to. And that changes even here in Georgia. It's different here where I live versus up in the mountains in Georgia because there's plants up there that are not down here. So just go out and be in, nature and see what's available to you. Pick a few plants with permission and then find out what they are and learn what they do. That's my resiliency corner. What about you, Kyler?
so you sent me an article and I loved
Mm-hmm.
this article. I read it while I was waiting for my dinosaur computer to crank up so that we could get on and do the podcast. I read it through twice and there is a paragraph here that for my resiliency corner I'm going to share with our listeners. So this article was written it was after viewing Wicked for Good, which Grande and Arrivo, however you pronounce it, absolutely phenomenal. I still haven't seen the first one, but thanks to TikTok, I've seen so many clips that now I have to become a completely dedicated Wicked follower. I no longer have a choice. But this was written by Eric Dupree for Medium.com, and he's talking about the transition of Elphaba from this young naive person into a state of awareness. And that is for the practitioner, that is the state, that is the place that we try to live in. We try to live in a place free of self-delusion, free of illusions. That's what it means to walk the crooked path of the wise. And he says, what Arrivo captures so precisely is not the birth of wickedness, but the collapse of the fantasy that goodness guarantees safety. Her Elphaba is not corrupted, she is awakened. The phrase, so be it, lands not as surrender, but as decision. The world will call her wicked, no matter what she does. So she might as well act from truth rather than apology. That is the moment the witch archetype is born, not in malice, but in refusal. That is the
Mm-hmm.
nature of your magic. The ability to say yes or to no, to choose. That is the greatest power you will ever hold. And to know that to be a witch is not to be wicked, it is not to be corrupted, it is simply to be and to live in a state and moment of truth.
I hope you go out and have a magical day.
Hail and farewell, friends.
Thank you for listening to Urban Unwitches. Please reach co-host Kyler Petrie and Rev Dia at urbanunwitches@gmail.com. That's urbanunwitches@gmail.com to suggest topics for shows or comment on past episodes. Please join our Discord channel, Urban Unwitches Podcast. Follow us on TikTok at Urban Unwitches. Follow us on YouTube at Urban Unwitches to watch all episodes. And listen to all our past podcasts on your favorite podcasting platform. Rev Dia is a witch for hire as an officiant, life coach, astrologer, geomancer, and medium, and can be reached at www.revdia.net. See you next time. Thank you for joining us on the Circle Podcast, presented by Circle Sanctuary, and produced for all who follow nature-centered paths. Join us throughout the week for various programming connecting with the community around the world. Please don't forget to watch for updates on the Circle Sanctuary website at www.circlesanctuary.org. Follow us on Facebook at Facebook/Circle Podcasts. We can also be found on your favorite podcast hosting sites, such as iTunes, Spotify, and others. Until next time, many blessings.